I now want to talk to you about first year seminar. And I know I'm going into a lot of detail, but again, this will be the class that will be part of your program no matter what in both semesters. So I just want to talk a little bit about first year seminar, which is pages 27 to 31, and talk about why there are so many more pages. Because there are more types of first year seminar and more topics. And the reason there are more types is because first year seminar expands out of the English department and is actually a program that encompasses the whole college. It's a college-wide program. Professors from all different departments teach first year seminars. We have political science professors, economics professors, chemistry professors, physics professors, certainly English professors, but just about every department you can imagine contributes to the first year seminar program. And some of these topics will be very familiar. I'll come back to why you see reinventing literary history again. Some of them are special topics that are just something near and dear to the professor's heart, something the professor may be doing research in, something the professor likes but now has the opportunity to introduce interdisciplinary texts that aren't necessarily part of her or his usual classroom in her or his department. And also reacting to the past, which is a signature class that was developed at Barnard. And so I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. You'll see them all laid out in more detailed descriptions on page 28 through 31. But just talking about the types of courses, I want to talk first about why do you see the same three topics in first year seminar that we just talked about in first year English. You see the Americas, Legacy of the Mediterranean, and Women and Culture listed again. And that's because of this different reading list that I just described to you that happens in the fall and then happens in the spring. Some students hear that there are the two different semesters of reading. They hear that there is a particular literary tradition that interests them, and they would really like the benefit of both. I'd really like to start with the Greeks and move all the way to the 20th century and see what the trajectory of the whole tradition is all about. And so we offer them as seminars so that you can do just that. You can take both semesters. One is your English requirement, one is your seminar requirement. They will obviously feel similar, but for those of you who are particularly interested in literature, that would be a good thing. And you can take one is English and one is seminar, or one is seminar and one is English. We'll offer them in both formats, both types of classes, both semesters. And the reading list in the spring for the seminar will be just as it is for the English, so you can do it in either combination. The Reacting to the Past class, I'll describe it briefly, but if it sounds interesting to you, I would really encourage you to go to the website that's listed in the guide. As I mentioned, it's a signature class because it was developed by a history professor here named Mark Carnes, who teaches all kinds of history classes, but was interested in coming up with a history class that's kind of unusual, kind of approached it differently from perhaps a textbook-oriented sort of approach to history. And he wanted something that was very interactive and very much about revisiting moments in history and kind of really delving into them a little bit more personally and interactively. And so he developed this class that's formatted around what they call games. And a game involves a particular moment in history. And so, for example, the one I always remember is the very first game, which is the trial of Socrates, which of course happened. And so in the class, there's some common reading that everyone reads together. I believe in that case it's Plato's Republic. But then everyone in the class is also assigned a role. And the role could be a person who was a natural person in history at that time, who was involved in the event, somebody who was arguing for or against Socrates and had some kind of investment in how the trial worked out. Or it could be somebody sort of representative of a sort of faction or sort of constituency. So the one that always sticks out of my mind is there's a role of the fishmonger in ancient Athens who represents a citizen who needs to be persuaded of how to vote. And students get their roles, they go off, they do a certain amount of research on their role. Sometimes you work in factions and you have to collaborate with one another to represent your group's role in history as well as your individual's role in history. And you come in and essentially give a lot of speeches, and there's a lot of effort at persuasion, at recreation. Other people in the class don't know what you've been researching, and you are representing your role that is new to them. And there's some kind of mysterious calculus that goes on that I'm not quite familiar with about how people are allotted points, and then there's a determinant of who has succeeded most of the game. And I remember one year the fishmonger won, so I don't know how that happens. One year I think Socrates lived, and I'm not sure how that happened either. But the idea is to certainly learn what did happen in history, but also then to reenact it. In fact, sometimes you will see the title of Reacting to the Past with re-acting or re in parentheses and acting, because there is an element of acting it back out again. So for some of you who love performing or love debate, this may automatically sound interesting to you, but I will say that I have talked with students who don't necessarily seem a performative type, but who said, it was exactly because I'm not the kind of person who's the first student to raise her hand. I'm not the kind of person who wants to do a lot of talking in the classroom, but there was something about this that sounded interesting to me, and precisely because I had to represent someone else's views in history, information that I had to get across, I had to do my part in this faction or group, I found that I could get up and give speeches in a way that I didn't even know I could. And so it can be something that you don't have to have a type of personality per se to be interested in this type of class. So if it's sounding at all intriguing, I would encourage you to go to the website, because you can not only read more about it, but there's video of a class in progress, and so you can get a kind of sense of what it's like in the classroom. And the last thing I'll talk about, since I kind of mentioned the special topics, which you'll see spelled out in those pages, is I just want to emphasize to you the special opportunities that are noted on page 27. One of them is this opportunity to do a full year of literary tradition that I mentioned. We sometimes refer to that as a full sweep of the tradition, so if that's interesting to you, that's pretty easy to accommodate. But the other thing is at the top of page 27, there's something called the In-Residence Seminar Program. And just to clarify what that program is, it's a point of intersection between your academic life and your residential life. If a student is in an in-residence seminar, she and 15 other students are in the seminar, sitting around the seminar table together, and those same 16 students are also living on the same hallway together. Now, you're on one of the longer hallways, you're not living with each other as roommates, there are other people in the hallway besides those 16 students, but you're all in close proximity to one another. So for some people, this sounds automatically interesting, like a great way to build community and get to know people very well. For some people, this automatically feels a little claustrophobic. So again, this could be a point of preference for you. It is the one class you share. The rest of your academic program will likely be very different, and you are distributed on the hallway, so the amount of time you see your classmates may vary. But some of the anecdotes I've heard from students about the program, of ways that they felt it really provided a special community for them, had to do with, for example, the very first day of class. You walk into class, it may in fact be your first ever college class, and you see a table full of people you already know. Because during orientation, the people that you were getting to see most often, getting to know best in that short period of time are the people in your hallway. And so to walk in, see people around the table you know, and to immediately hit, in some ways, a dynamic that's a bit more comfortable in your discussions and in getting used to this seminar format can be great. Other seminars will certainly develop that, but it may just take a week or two as people get to know one another. You hear about people leaving the classroom, all walking to the dining hall together and sitting down and continuing the discussion that they were just having about the book that they were talking about in class, or about the assignment that they were just given and how they're all thinking about it already. I always hear the story about the student brushing their teeth in the communal bathroom, and somebody from class walks in and they're brushing their teeth and talking about Homer. How they do it at the same time, I'm really not sure, but somehow they manage the discussion and the teeth brushing. So these are just some of the ways in which you can find the overlap, and some people find that it is, again, a special kind of community where you get to know people intellectually in both venues, and it can be a great experience if it's interesting to you. It is only a fall program because you are placed in your rooms, and we don't ask everybody to move when you pick new seminars in the spring, obviously. So if this does sound interesting to you, you're going to want to emphasize seminar for the fall. There are only 7. They, just as there are 7 floors for first years, there's one in a hallway on each of the floors. So we do have to see what the demand is, and so not quite everyone who is interested may be able to be placed in one, but we can, especially if you're interested in the program and you'd like to rank most highly several in-residence seminars, there's probably a good chance that we could fit you into one. It is the required meeting of the two, in the sense that if you are placed into the seminar, you must be placed onto the hallway. So just know if you're particularly attached to one of the topics, but you're not so sure you care for the program, you need to be on the hallway. But like I said, most people find it to be a really great experience. Okay, I've been talking a lot, so I want to pause and ask Mevish to tell you a little bit about what she took as her first year foundations, what order she took them in, what her experience with them was, and then we'll see if there are any questions.
I think First Year Foundations was very appreciative of the fact that it's designed to sort of break down the fourth wall of academia in a way. Because as you know, it's like Dean Alva said, it's capped at 16 students, and it's this set of classes. They're the only classes that are completely closed off to Columbia students. So it's only Barnard first years who are taking this class. It's a very specific demographic, and so it's geared towards you as Barnard first years, and preparing you for college work. I know that the research paper is a big part of first year English, and coming into it, I don't think I was so appreciative of that preparatory aspect, in the sense that, as many of you, you come in thinking, well, I've already taken a bunch of AP classes, I'm part of science research, I know how to write a research paper, I know how to write in English, I'm good, I got this. But I think that's what surprised me most about these courses, is that these professors, they know that in this particular class, you've got students who've only been here for a few weeks or only one semester. And so they break down the process of the classroom setting itself. So in a way, it is kind of like breaking down that fourth wall, helping you through that writer's process, sitting with you and kind of bringing it down for you, saying, okay, well, this might work for, in a setting that you're used to, this might work for, the English department, but, because I'm a political science professor, here's what I would expect in my department. So you might want to think of that if you're planning on taking any more poli-sci courses, which is a lot of information to take in, but it's also very useful. So immediately, you're incorporating things that you learn from your first year foundations courses into your other courses. Your writing does improve dramatically because you've got professors who are paying special attention to your writer's style. I know that, again, the research paper might be a little daunting for some students thinking about it, but the beauty of it, again, was because these professors were specifically teaching you how to write research papers. It was a very deliberate process. So we started weeks beforehand, and our professors talked us through the different resources that are available to us, both online and on campus, in terms of libraries and what's available to you there and how librarians can help you. And so there's quite a lot of information to glean from these courses. Speaking personally, I took first year seminar in my first semester, and I absolutely loved the course. I was a prospective poli-sci major coming in, that did change, but it really was an amazing introduction to Barnard and the poli-sci department. So if you're not sure about what seminar to take, I think looking at what department it's inspired by is a good indication of, it's a good gauge of seeing whether or not you really want to take that class. Because you can ask your professor questions about the major, about particular departments. In the spring semester, I naturally took first year English, and I took Legacy of the Mediterranean too. And again, it kind of goes back to what Dean Halba was saying about kind of questioning things that we've taken for granted in terms of the literary world. So Legacy of the Mediterranean was really dealing with the Western canon, but kind of turning it on its head. So questioning these literary paradigms that we've internalized and sometimes taken for granted. So we read some Voltaire, and we read Milton, we read Paradise Lost, and Heart of Darkness. So I looked at the list, the required readings list, and I fell in love with it. And so again, that's a big indication of first year English, is this syllabus and seeing how you want to grapple with those particular texts and which lens you really want to see them through.